Obviously, we're going to start with Real Madrid and how they were beaten at Anfield.
They were rather hoping not.
Well, thank you.
They're listeners.
Yeah, they're probably listening now. Gosh, you saw it. We all saw it. It's not the same Real Madrid, is it, David?
It is not the same Real Madrid. Absolutely not. There's a word that goes around a lot now, and that's aura. And I think if there was a team that kind of invented aura in a certain competition, then it was Real Madrid in the Champions League. That shine, that glow that they had in the competition seems to have been shaved off at the moment. And they look anything but invincible or intimidating to anyone.
What would you put that down to?
I think there's a few factors at play. I think the structuring of the squad that's happened. I think Ancelotti's tactics as well haven't perhaps progressed as much as they'd like. And then there's also the big issue, which is the number one issue at the club right now, of a certain Frenchman up front.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a moment or two, but this is symptomatic of their recent history in the Champions League, though, this defeat against Liverpool. It's not that Liverpool didn't play well. It's not that Liverpool did not play well, but that Real Madrid played so badly, it looked as if they clearly weren't the defending champions.
Yeah, I think both those things can be true, and I think if you look at the difference between Liverpool and Real Madrid at the moment, it feels enormous. Now, look, I think Liverpool are the best team in the Champions League at the moment, hands down, and not just because they're top of the table, not just because they've got maximum points. The way they have played, they've been amazing. And there were, I don't think they played quite as well last night as they played in the second half against Leverkusen. I thought they were unbelievable in that. But there were definitely moments where they got towards that sort of form. They were revving the engine in the same way.
I think so. I think it was one of the best performances I've seen from any team in the Champions League this season last night. From Liverpool, honestly, I was really impressed. Some of their one-touch football was brilliant.
It was great, but I think they did that they did it at that level for maybe 15 minutes last night, whereas they did it for like 30 35 against Leverkusen, I would say. But you're right, like same ballpark, definitely. They are so convincing when they turn it up, Liverpool. Yeah. But I think with Real Madrid, there was always a bit of fear going into this game. Bear in mind that Liverpool hadn't beaten Real Madrid in the Champions League for 15 years. But you thought if there's going to be a night, it's going to be this night. Not just because Liverpool are so good at the moment, because Real Madrid are in quite a weak position. Now, like you said, David, we'll get to the Mbappé bit. But I think the thing that struck me is they go into this game and their defence has been completely decimated. You know, they've been
centre-back,
and they've been
rinsed.
The only fit senior centre-back they have is Antonio Rudiger. They've been lining up after the Carvajal injury and a Lucas Vázquez injury. Of course, he came back as substitute last night with Federico Valverde at right back. And of course, the main problem is, it's like when Chelsea had Michael Essien playing at centre-back. He's very capable of doing the job. You just really miss him in midfield. And the bit where they made the subs and they brought Lucas Vázquez on, that was when Real Madrid had their best spell, when all of a sudden they have Valverde in midfield. Because the bit between when Real Madrid get and miss the penalty and the second Liverpool goal, Real Madrid are at least competitive in the game. But I think the thing that was the most striking about last night as a whole, and it was a poor Real Madrid performance, I would say, albeit against excellent opposition, as we said, is the fact that decimated defence didn't seem like the beginning and end of their problems. There are so many other problems in the team. And you pointed it out, Dotton, 3 defeats in the last 4 Champions League games. Now, the fourth of those, like 3 games ago, was 5-2 win over Dortmund, where they were losing 2-0 after an hour. And that massively flattered them, by the way. Now, of course, especially when you've got all the attacking talent fit and firing, so when Vinicius is there, as he wasn't last night, and we can come back to that in terms of a blend in a little bit, is the fact that top quality players can get you out of very unpromising situations. You can play poorly for a fair chunk of the game and maybe get away with it. But they're at this moment where the blend's not quite right and their key players aren't playing well enough to get them out of these games in which they're playing poorly.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's what's always got them through, even when Real Madrid, perhaps as a collective, weren't on it. Then one of their main superstars could just turn up. So say they went 1-0 down against a Getafe or a Las Palmas, it's all right. They've got Benzema, they've got Cruz, they've got Modric. Somebody can come through right now, pull us through this, and we'll win this 2-1. And that was the going back to that word aura about them. What they had, they could do that. They could grind it out. Even if you went 2-0 against Real Madrid, it was kind of like, okay, this is still not a safe result. By the way, this is Real Madrid. But right now they seem to have lost that little bit. And it is an individual and a collective problem as well.
You look at it and you think they are supposed to be the defending champions, and you expect a certain amount of intensity, but it was Liverpool that had the intensity the whole way out. It's almost as if Real Madrid do not believe that they're the defending champions, that they should have that aura that David talks about, or the swagger, or whatever it might be, of having. And from one season to another, I know a lot can happen in a team. A lot can happen in a team. But you can't be looking at Real Madrid and saying, well, look, there were some key players not playing, etc., and so therefore we can understand why they struggled. You can't be looking at that. Not when they're bringing through youngsters like Arda Güler, who was one of the best players, I thought, last night.
And don't forget, Liverpool didn't have Trent Alexander-Arnold playing last night. Conor Bradley played instead of him. They didn't have the first choice in Alisson last night. They had Kelleher. So they were fine.
Two of their best players.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
So they were fine to rotate. So Liverpool weren't at full strength last night, but they still dominated that game.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think, in terms of the players they really need at the moment, they've got a few absent who they really need. And funnily enough, I'm not really talking about Vinicius. I think the players they could really do with back sooner rather than later are Tchouaméni and Alaba. Those are the two who would make the difference.
Alaba would be big, yeah.
I was at
midfield and defender.
Yes.
Yeah,
and like Alaba is, a Rolls Royce of a defender. I think that's clear. But he's also a massive personality.
Yeah.
And Real Madrid really lacked personality in this game. I think the players who you would look to for leadership, I mean, Valverde wasn't really in the position to give it.
I hate him on that right side. I hate him on that right side. Like you said, when he was brought in midfield, then things happened more. I think that's where he needs to be. He was on the periphery there. And Real Madrid's style and setup is to have a different type of profile of player on that right side that isn't Valverde. I understood back in the day when Real Madrid played a certain way, Valverde in that position, but right now I don't think he can. I think it has to be somebody more technical, somebody more slight, with that skill and that flair. And funnily enough, while you're talking about missing players, he took a lot of flack, but I tell you what, they're missing Rodrigo right now as well.
Yeah, that they are. I mean, he gets through so much work on that right-hand side.
Rodrigo Carvajal right side. And if there was anybody who wouldn't have stood for what happened last night at Anfield in that Real Madrid team, it would have been Dani Carvajal.
Yeah.
Okay, he might have took a red. He might have gone through somebody, but he wouldn't have stood for it. And he would have said, lads, can we remember the standards here, please? Can we remember the standards of this club? And I think it would have sent a knock through the whole team. And there was just nobody to do that last night. It was kind of just plodding along. A bit of acceptance almost.
Nobody to do that when we're talking about a team. And here, yes, we're going to bring in a V player that you mentioned earlier on. Nobody to be able to stamp their authority when they've got arguably the best player in the world. Oh, you would have thought so before last night. In any case, I think there might be a question mark now after last night.
Yeah,
because he was so poor, Kylian Mbappé.
He was really poor. And I think there's been a question mark over whether he's the best player in the world for a while. I mean, he's definitely not, but he's not definitely the best player in the world either. And he's definitely not at the moment. Now, it's clear that he's got some issues on and off the pitch at the moment. But I think people have every right to expect better than what he produced in this game at Liverpool. It's a huge game against a club who, Real Madrid's only even real slight competitors for his signing, really, a club that wanted to go all the way and sign him as well. And it just looked pedestrian, really. I suppose you could say that was Real Madrid in microcosm, but you are looking for a bit of leadership from him. I guess the question is with Mbappé at the moment, he feels fragile enough in terms of form and in terms of how settled he is that he needs a carrot more than a stick. It feels like he needs the arm round the shoulder at the moment. But I think when you were talking about Arda Güler there, it felt like the team were looking to him for some sort of technical leadership, or to Brahim Diaz, for some sort of technical leadership. Now, Brahim Diaz He stepped up at some big moments. I mean, David, you were talking earlier about when he came in for Jude Bellingham when he was suspended against Leipzig last season, scored that goal, which was incredibly important in their Champions League campaign in a match which they didn't play very well.
Another game they should have been 3-4-0 down, and he plucks that out of nowhere.
Exactly, we're talking about big players standing up at moments when the chips are down, but he's not really in the position to do that at the moment because, well, one, he's in the same team as Bellingham, so the role's slightly different. Because there's no Vinicius there, and because he hasn't played that much recently. Of course, he's been recently linked with a move back to Milan. And then you look at Arda Güler, who Turkey are worried about his form because he's just not played enough. He doesn't look in any sort of rhythm at all. So all of a sudden now he's plonked back in the team. Fine, you can do that at Leganes away. You can't do that at Liverpool away, can you?
No, very good point. With Mbappé, we were led to believe from the pundits like yourself, David, that the problem was him and Vinicius playing together. Then you get an important match like this where
I don't think we ever said that. Some people say
I never said you directly.
Pundits like you.
Yeah. Okay, let me say that again.
Okay, be Kendrick and we'll sue you. Go on.
I ain't going anywhere near that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll be filing a lawsuit after this.
And the lawsuits don't stop coming when it comes to Drake, because, you know. Yeah. But other pundits have said that, look, the problem is because they can't fit both Vinicius and Kylian Mbappé into the same team. And here he is, an opportunity for him to play more central, perhaps, whether that was the answer. What's gone wrong with Mbappé? What's not right with him?
Yeah, I tell you what, it wouldn't matter what role it was with Vinicius out of the team. It was just the fact that Vinicius was out of the team. It's kind of like, okay, Mbappé, he's a perfect opportunity. Present yourself very early in your Real Madrid career. You know, one of the top players in the world is now out. You come in and you show us that you can handle the pressure and the status of being at this club. He hasn't done it so far. I think I'd be really surprised if he had 3-4 worse performances than he'd put on last night for Real Madrid in his entire career. Honestly, I'd be really shocked. So
it's just that the all of it, really.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that stuff didn't come off. Like the level of implication.
Yep.
It just didn't look ready for it at all.
He didn't look ready, and obviously it's something that's been talked about, but honestly that tackle by Conor Bradley seemed to just take his soul. The way he picked himself up after Mbappé was just, oh wow, he just had his insides ripped out from him. Yeah. And obviously the cheer went up around Anfield, such a loud noise, it was as loud as any of the goals that went in. And you could see his body language and his attitude after that kind of like just drop. And it was interesting to watch him as the game went on, because there were shades of the old Mbappé there in terms of his trademark move. Little step over, sweep in, cut inside and go for a little pop, cross or shot. But the touch was over-egged. It was read very well by Liverpool as well. It felt a little bit forced. It felt a little bit obvious as well. And it was really, really troubling for him all night. And he never got any momentum going at all. And I was watching it and I was thinking, second half, and he was playing on that left wing, and the Real Madrid fans are just in that little pocket of Anfield right there. And I'm thinking, this lad keeps bloody getting dispossessed. He keeps getting tackled in that corner right in front of those Real Madrid fans who he needs to impress so much. And they were seeing him slump up, not track back, not chase the ball down, pile pressure on his midfield. Modric is still there, poor, nearly getting into his 40s now, still there, having to deal with this guy who won't come back. And it was remarkable to watch, it really was. And this was an opportunity where you'd expect more from him. But I think it's bigger than his position.
I mean, is that just the issue that against Liverpool, you can't have a passenger off the ball like that? Because that's what he was, and that was a huge problem. And especially when you're pairing him with players like Brahim Diaz and Arda Güler, who are not the most physical sort of footballers anyway. I mean, I suppose there has to be a question, did Ancelotti pick the right team in that sort of environment? But I guess what we're going to see over the coming weeks, Don, is we've talked so much about the click between Vinicius and Mbappé. I don't think that's really a long-term concern for Real Madrid.
I don't think so. I think it's honestly an individual one on Mbappé.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But also, the good thing for them is that with Vinicius out the team, even if it's difficult for them in the short term. It's in the long term, I think it's actually going to benefit them because it means that Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappé are going to work on their relationship together. That's massively important for Real Madrid going forward. Now, we saw a bit of that with the game at Leganés at the weekend. So they sort of repositioned into a sort of 4-4-2 with Bellingham a little bit closer to Mbappé. And I know we can talk about formations all day, but one of the truths about football is it's quite a simple game. And one of the simplest things to do when you're trying to assimilate good players in a team together, they need to be sharing, not in the same space, but in close proximity to each other. And what Carlo Ancelotti is quite self-consciously trying to do is get Bellingham closer to Mbappé. Because if you look at before last weekend, they have an average of, I think it's 3 passes to each other per game. That's not nearly enough. If you go to the weekend, I think it's something like 14 by Bellingham to Mbappé and 11 by Mbappé back to Bellingham. That's more like it. That's what you need. And that is what they're going to have to workshop while Vinicius is out of the team. Now, of course, the Champions League question and where they are at the moment is a different question.
There's a jeopardy there, isn't there, for them? A huge jeopardy. Can we imagine Real Madrid not making it through this stage of the competition, David?
It's very difficult to imagine. I mean,
3 out of 4.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have to really dig deep, and it probably is not going to be pretty. I think they will get through. I think they will do what they need to do. I just don't think it's going to be very pretty. I think it's grueling a couple of months ahead of Real Madrid until they start to click, until they get something together.
And Atalanta are away next. I mean,
that is rough.
That is a stiff task, you know?
Yeah.